Welcome back. Let's get that right there. There we go. Welcome back. This is physical education and our little sometime physical education podcast after last episode with my buddy Andy, uh, who we talked kind of forever. We are going to start calling this one 5 questions on fitness and limit it to 5. I'm here with Lumos coach Jon Fazio, and also somebody who I could talk to forever. So I thought you were a good candidate to also see if we can keep this to 20 minutes or so and not drive everybody crazy.
You picked an interesting person to test the short one on.
Yeah, the only worst candidate would be Steve.
Would be
Steve
Steve.
Fiorentino,
Yeah.
who we could talk and it would be like almost nonsensical.
We learned
Yeah.
more or less nothing, or
Yeah.
a lot, and nothing in between.
Yeah. So today we're gonna go through 5 questions, try to make it kind of quick hit. And I want to talk to John about his specialty at our gym, his specialty in the field of fitness and health and performance, and that is competitive fitness, competitive CrossFit, competitive functional fitness. What do you call it these days?
Mostly competitive CrossFit. I think that's the avenue I feel the most. I haven't sent anyone to any competition that is not CrossFit related.
No Nordic strength or like
Certainly not.
log rolling kind of things.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
fun, but
Never.
I picked the one sport that is 7 sports, so it kind of covers everything,
There you go.
more or less.
Well, that's what I wanted to start us off talking about. And when I started CrossFit, going to the CrossFit games meant you would just fly to California and show up at Dave Castro's ranch in Aromas and be like, I want to do that. And you were a CrossFit Games athlete. Even like trickling down to what at the time I think was regionals or sectionals, like you just show
Yeah.
up, right? And it was just like any competition now where you show up, you give them some money. I don't even know if you had to do that, and you were in. And so obviously that's changed a lot. And I kind of have felt this like as I've personally been doing a little less CrossFit, although I'm doing some right now. And certainly kind of like I'm not keeping my eye on the kind of like the game as much,
Yeah.
the sort of like the sport part, like you would follow any other sport. I feel a little like disconnected today. So, the first question to lead off is like, what does that mean today? What is competitive CrossFit? What does competitive fitness in that sense mean today? What's the landscape like?
Yeah, I mean, at like if we start at like the top level and like work our way down at like the height of the sport when we're talking like the games and stuff, that has changed significantly, like over and over and over again. So it's probably not your fault. Like the way
You got to keep up.
the road to the games has changed every single year almost since like 2018,
Right.
which makes it a lot harder. Now it seems to follow some format of like it starts with the open, which is happens in we do the open every year. That's like $20 to get on the leaderboard. You do well enough in that, you move on to quarterfinals, which is also online, done in your own gym. The open, they take 25%. That goes to quarterfinals. Then, depending on your region, they take a certain amount of people to semifinals. And then, depending on how you place in semifinals, you go to the games. That format has shifted around a lot, but that like vague structure has always been there.
Yeah, I feel like they've done something like that for a while with
Yeah.
different like is there regionals, isn't there, and stuff like that. But I don't know. I personally don't feel other than there was that one games that like for some reason was like really ended up like they selected people who were just really good at gymnastics. Otherwise, I feel like they've always done a pretty good job of being like, yeah, the fittest people are gonna do the best, almost like if they had a competition of like I don't know, just like tiddlywinks or something. Like
Yeah.
the best people would be the best at it.
Yeah, and that's been like the rhetoric is like, is the test getting the right people to the games because it's changed so much? And that always comes around, and it's always like kind of the same 40 men and same 40 women.
Right.
Maybe one or two people get burned by like, something, whether it be like the style of workouts or the actual process itself. But like, you still have the same like mainstays year after year. Like, Pat Vellner's been at every games, no matter what the format is, for the past like 8 years. So,
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that leads into the question, like a kind of like sub question of this is like, what does it mean to be a competitive CrossFit athlete these days versus what it used to be? And sort of like what is the, I don't know, like what does the field look like, or what does the sport look like versus, what it was in 20, 10,
yeah,
11, something like that.
I think like the biggest thing is the landscape is a lot bigger. Like
Mhm.
you don't have to be in the top 1% of the world to like, get out there and make like a season for yourself. There's plenty of competitions now, even at that level, but more so at like the intermediate, sub elite level, CrossFit level. Like there's so much to do and so many opportunities to go out there and compete in a similar format to that at which like games athletes do. Like there's way more competitions that require a qualification
Right.
process. Like the days of just show up and like pay your whatever amount of money, it is kind of got like I don't like now with the level that I coach at, I don't have the finger on the pulse of like local
Yeah,
competition
you don't really send people to ones that are just like,
where
hey,
it's just like you pay
let's,
your $100 and
yeah,
then go do three
right.
workouts in an afternoon and call it a day. Like there's way more opportunity for, something like a BCS Classic or a TFX or a Wadapalooza where there's like stages to making it there,
Mhm.
which I think for people who do like to compete, it has created a lot more of an even playing field. It's created a lot, like I said, like a lot more opportunities. Like we even have like a seasonal structure that we work around. And makes it feel like you are participating in a sport rather than like doing just one-off things for fun every now and again.
To put it in terms that we will both understand. You know where I'm going with this?
No, I don't.
It's the difference between a one shot and a
And
campaign.
yeah, it's the difference between one shot and a campaign for sure. If
Okay.
anyone knows what we're talking about,
Nerds, what's up?
nerds, what's going on?
um,
Very much that for
so
sure.
So, I mean, there's a good segue in. You talked about like, you have people who are in your compete program and you are working with them now basically year round
Yeah,
in a kind of a seasonal fashion, right? Uh, you know, I think we're gonna touch on both sides of this, but I would imagine that working with somebody like that who's committed to that is
mhm,
very fun, right? Like
yeah,
elements that are really fun, really interesting, really exciting things to program and to have them work on. And obviously there are some that are not as much fun.
for sure.
So starting with like fun stuff, what is for you the best part or the most fun part for you as a coach when you're preparing somebody to compete?
Yeah, I think like the baseline of like I'm dealing with people who are generally like very bought in already lets me get past some of the other stuff that maybe is like less fun. Like there's a base level, like this person is dedicated to what they're doing. They're making decisions inside and outside of the gym that influence their performance. Like they are about it, which makes it a lot easier for me to do my job. And that's a lot of fun for me. I think like on the preparedness side, like I love being right. And that's my favorite
I have
part.
no idea what that's like.
So yeah, and like watching somebody like week after week, month after month progress, and then like everyone goes through this. It's like when you're in it, when you're working out in a vacuum, like you never feel like you're actually getting better because it's kind of my job to wallop you like week after week, and then 3 months goes by and I get to sit there and be like, remember when, that was your 1 rep max and now you do it for reps like in workouts? That's pretty cool. And then it just like dawns on them. Like for me, it's just like watching people build into probably something they didn't think they were able to achieve is always like the most rewarding thing. And then on like that side of things, like on the more emotional side of things, like watching the level of confidence in people like grow in what they're capable of, um, is great. Like, and watching that come out on the competition floor is like the big payoff. Like watching people, who, I mean, like everyone's kind of a head case if you're a competitor, watching people like spiral out about something and then absolutely like decimate whatever they were spiraling out about is great. Um, that's always fun. And then just like what I get to do from like a programming and coaching standpoint when you're dealing with a population that is like bought in, believes in what you're doing, it allows me to work a lot more creatively than not necessarily like a group classer or someone who's at like an earlier developmental stage in their fitness, but like I could do my job freely and creatively, and that's where like I'm at my best when I don't have like these guardrails on like what can or can't be done.
Right.
And then like I've worked with the same population for a really long time. Like a lot of my competitors have been with me for a while, and just like I will even go back and look at how I used to program previously and how like bottlenecked it was by like the base level fitness that I was dealing with to what I program now, where I was like, I say to them all the time, like, if I wrote you this workout 6 months ago, we wouldn't be able to do this,
Right.
and being like, okay, like, this is great. This means the word made, keeps my head in check a lot of the time. Like, yeah, if you had to do that, in January, this would be a shit show. And now
Yeah.
it's like, no problem, easy peasy.
And it sounds like in some ways what you're talking about is trust, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you're really good at building that with people, but you
We
know,
try.
that's what gives you that leeway, right?
Yeah.
Like buy in, trust, right? They know that like even if they're you program them something and they look at it and whether it's like, truly distasteful, whether it's like, I mean, I've seen you program, assault bike tests and like row burpee stuff. It's just like anybody looks at that and is like,
This is awful.
right? Or just stuff where like especially for someone who isn't a coach, whose job isn't to,
Yeah.
like, program and things like that, might look at it and be like, "Why am I doing this? Like, why
Mhm.
am I doing these movements together? Why is it this way?" But I think, like, part of what you're doing is, you have the trust, and then, you sort of, like, pay that trust back, to be like, "Yeah, just, like, do this, trust the process,
Yeah.
stay in the road and we're gonna see, where it gets you. And that sounds fun. It's nice to be trusted.
Yeah, I feel like 20% of my job is writing workouts. The other 80% is like relationships and communication.
Right.
That's it. Like it's just like making sure we're all in the same headspace, making sure we understand why we're doing things, making sure that everyone knows their objectives based on like what we're doing. That like it's mostly that, and then like the working out part's super easy. It's everything else that is like very, that is the more difficult part of things.
Cool. All right. Well, we talked about all the fun stuff, right? What what's hard, right? What are the challenges? What kind of like can, throw either you off track as a coach or somebody off track? Like what's hard when you are preparing somebody to eventually compete?
It's mostly external factors, like it's stuff I can't control. Whether that be like not knowing what workouts we're gonna get dealt, not
Mm,
people have life stuff go on, like all that stuff, like managing that and managing expectations based on something that I don't know becomes really difficult. And I like people I work with, I'm very close with, a lot of them are friends. Like I get very emotionally wrapped up in that. Um, and that ends up being like the more challenging part of my job. Like someone who has like life is crazy, they haven't been in able to make it in training or show up the way they want to and this and that, and like putting out there like, hey, we need to now like set an expectation for what your result is going to be based on what we've been given or like what we've been able to do,
right.
and be okay with that is like real, like it's hard for
They're
people.
not pro athlete. I mean, they're
Yeah,
not pro athletes.
you
Like they
know,
are doing this around
exactly.
full-time jobs and kids and things and like,
And that's the harder part. And like some of the other stuff, like, like I'm very picky about workouts that I like and don't like. I'm very critical of qualifiers and competitions and how they're run, and just like it's gotten easier for me over the years to kind of roll with the punches and just go with what you get. But you could ask any of my athletes, like when it comes to like competition qualifier time, I'm a very frustrated individual,
ooh,
based on like what is coming down the pipe for them.
okay. Well, I mean, this question was originally lower down the list. This was 5, but now we're
Yeah.
gonna move it up to 4, right?
Okay, great.
Because I think like that is the perfect segue. Uh I think like what you're talking about is human nature and
Yeah.
resilience and decision making, and the way that sometimes like, you know, the format of a competition that's like, the classic CrossFit unknown, unknowable, right? And just the culture of like how CrossFit's developed or competition is developed, is pretty interesting, right? Uh, CrossFit as like a training methodology started out as this sort of endless grab bag of movements, but now competitions like you have been talking about have become more and more sort of like organized and predictable in some ways, and some of the movements have become sort of mainstays because they're good tests, they're fun and fun to watch as a spectator. They're easy to judge. And, now there are some movements that like might be great in, regular fitness, but you rarely see them in competition, right? I think about like a push up, right? Which
Yeah.
is like, you just can't judge it.
Yeah.
It's all qualitative. There's almost no like
There's nothing
quantitative
like
range
objective.
of motion
Yeah.
standard. So, with that said, and with what you were just talking about like sometimes being frustrated about things, if you could take one movement out of like the currently accepted or currently seen movements in competition, what would that be? And then we're gonna ask about what would be if you could add one that maybe that we don't see that much.
Um, that's it. I've been fed these questions
I
previously, so
gave
this
I
is
gave him the heads
you
up.
gave me the heads
Yeah.
up, and I was thinking that there's no single movement necessarily.
Combinations.
It's like themes that get harped on over and over and over
Okay.
again that like really like bug the shit out of me.
Which are?
Um, like the global infatuation with like wall walks, it really bugs me. Like I think it's fine. Like I understand that it's something that should be tested and
Yeah.
has its place in fitness. But I'll give you an example. We just did two qualifiers back to back for two separate competitions. They happened 2 weeks after each other. In the first one of the tests was 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 wall walk and box jump over. Okay. And the box jump overs were the higher density of box jump overs. So it was a
Okay.
lot. It was like
Oh.
20
Okay.
down
I
to
was gonna be
10.
like, so just wall walks.
Right. But
Yeah.
also just
Right.
wall
Right.
walks. 2 weeks later, we get another test from a different qualifier that is like 30 down to 2 in like down by like 3 reps every single time of box jump overs with wall walks in between. And it's just like, I get it. I get it. We like it. But it's not necessary to keep banging on the same drum over and
Right.
over again. It sounds like I'm a wall walk hater. Maybe this is actually my
This
answer.
will this will be our this
But
will be the new shirt.
but
Yeah.
we've seen it in CrossFit
Right.
before where like they discover a movement
Right.
and then there's like an obsession with it afterward. Like right out
Devil's
when
press.
devil's press, dumbbell snatch.
Yeah.
Like when we introduced dumbbells into the open, now everything's dumbbells.
Right.
You know, I think my bigger like ilk with like qualifiers is like sometimes we are just hitting the same stimulus over and over again and the test isn't balanced, and that's what like really irks me.
Interesting.
Like if we do 5 workouts for a qualifier and they are all between 9 and 12 minutes, we did not test we do not have a complete test.
Right.
Like that is and like again, I get it. Like we are testing who could hit the gas pedal the hardest, which I'm trying to make athletes that could do anything over across different time domains and are highly skilled. And if it comes down to just like which meathead could just like absolutely blast themselves for the longest, it doesn't reward skill. It just rewards like one thing, which is like inability to suffer. And maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I haven't come around to that. But it just feels incomplete when we're looking at a CrossFit competition, which at the end of the day, we're like, you know, power output over broad times and domains, that doesn't fit the bill,
Right.
Um, so that's always the thing that I get. Like, if we look at other stuff, like if I could talk about adaptive for a while,
Yeah.
adaptive community, I'm mad for you so many times. If we're talking about somebody who has they are in like the lower category, which means they have some sort of disability from like the bottom half down, why are we doing box jumps? It's a movement that doesn't need to be in there and we can still get a test out of it, especially in that community when like, they're if for those who don't know, in adaptive, it is lower, it is anything
Right.
that quantifies.
So it's like, yeah, it's
So
pretty broad.
it's
Yeah.
broad. Everyone's got something different going on.
Right.
And then they choose things that categorize to a very specific thing that could be subbed out for something else.
Right.
Like you could take that and just make it, instead of box jump over, you could do step over and everyone's going to get it.
Yeah, you could find like a universal.
Right.
And again, as far as like, I mean, bringing back to what we talked about before is like, is the test still selecting the best people?
That's what
Right.
it
Like
comes down to.
the test would still select the fittest people.
Yeah.
Right. It just wouldn't leave some people being like, well, fuck,
Yeah.
like, I guess I'm out,
And then there's other more
Right.
specific stuff. I'm not going to call out a competition in particular, but my athletes will know exactly what I'm talking about. Where the qualifier is very CrossFit heavy, like
Right.
very specific CrossFit, and they're great tests. And we get to the competition, there's almost no CrossFit.
It's
fits
like
in.
goofy,
It
just
is
like, yeah,
sandbags
run
and
around a
weird
mountain.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, cool.
Which I think is cool.
Right. So yeah,
I'm like, it's weird.
It's not
Yeah.
not cool.
Right.
But if
Right.
you're gonna run that competition, have your qualifier have some of that present. You know, like that stuff doesn't make sense to me. And if you can't tell, that's what really gets me like fired up.
I guess it's, I mean, in some ways, like, and it's the same thing I think that, is run into all the way up and all the way down, especially in a sport that, like, again, there is that like variance in the competition is not the same thing every time. Is, like, especially now too, with the like online nature of qualifying and things like that, is like, how do we design a test? How do we design a qualifier that people can do at their gym in a certain amount of time that we can like see on camera, right? Like you can't have them go run off screen and,
Right.
run a mile. So, I mean, I do think it's hard. I don't think it's impossible. Right.
It's super hard, and like that should be said. It's incredibly hard to run a
Right.
qualifier. It's incredibly hard to like make a competition work. Like I totally get that. There's logistics involved, equipment, like judging, all that stuff. I totally get it. I think because of the way CrossFit continues to progress, where we need to like upscale constantly, simplicity has kind of gone to the wayside.
Right.
And like you could write 5 very simple tests and get the right people there.
Right.
But for the sake of like making things cool and
Right.
interesting, like we kind of lose some of that.
And I think that's kind of the like, it seems like that's the real friction,
Right.
Like, and I think even though the language you're using of like test, right?
Yeah.
Not workout, test,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, okay, do we want something that is predictive, something that is like inclusive,
Yeah.
right? Something that is, safe.
Right.
And then that sometimes is at odds with just the one big hairy word, just like cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, is it fucking awesome? Like we had him do blah, 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 and it's like, that's great. And I do think there is like some element of that in the, culture of CrossFit way back. And I do
For
think
sure.
some of that is like fun, right? But I guess it's more fun when it's like, it doesn't matter. Is a workout you're doing at your affiliate or your gym on like a Tuesday, you didn't pay money for, you haven't been preparing for 3 or 6 or 9 or a year, months for. Okay.
And it's just one of those things where I get pretty turned up about it. But I'm like, and some of those workouts are awesome. Like
Right.
they're objectively awesome and
Right.
really cool. But it's just one of those things. I'm like, is it complete?
Yeah, and your athletes aren't doing what they're doing to do badass workouts, right?
Yeah.
They're like, they want to compete and they want like kind of like structure to that competition. You can do badass workouts, at your gym with your buddies,
Yeah.
right? Like you can do that whenever you want. You can write a whole bunch of crazy stuff on the board and be like, this is gonna be killer. Like
Right.
nobody's ever thought of this crazy rep scheme. Probably a reason why. Like, yeah, we're gonna do 2, 35, 1, 95, and it's like, wow, that was crazy.
That
But
was crazy.
Was it good?
Yeah.
All right, what's your movement that you would add? What do you think is something that would be cool to add in the
That's
competition? I know it's hard.
interesting.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's like, well, how do you judge it? How do you whatever?
Yeah, I don't know. I think like everything is very like every competition too is very like shoulder to overhead heavy, but whatever the implement is, especially in like qualifiers too, just like getting back to using our legs. Like you don't really see deadlifting anymore, but maybe that's because of like a safety concern. I
Right.
think that's reasonable. But like the weights have become very predictive. Like you don't see a ton of like heavy anymore.
Right.
Everything's like pretty like volume dense. Like it's a
Mm.
game of density of like how much muscle endurance do you have. And that's
Interesting.
like again, that's fine, but let's not leave out some of the stuff. Like
Yeah.
I don't think any competition I've coached at has used a barbell maybe heavier than 135 pounds in a workout
It seems
on
like
the
it's
men's
almost
side.
like there's been this kind of like, right? Like early CrossFit is very volume heavy, contraction heavy,
Yeah,
just like big chunks of muscle endurance. And it seems like there's a kind of like inflection point in like, I don't know, 2015, 16 of like peak heavy,
yeah,
right? Where
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
certainly the big competitions, like there's going to be max lifts, there's going to be the like deadlift after the run, like lots of 1RM stuff. And like it was a time where, certainly in like a social media perspective, there was just lots of videos of
That's the
people
stuff people
throwing
want.
big old weights around. And
Yeah,
I do feel like that's kind of come back down, right? As a
yeah.
weakling, I'm here for it. But
You're fine.
it's dimension of the sport that kind of has changed. And it's interesting that kind of like it's like crested and
Yeah,
fallen.
and I imagine that's just because like kind of parsing out what works for a division and what doesn't is really difficult. But like these standards for weights are almost completely uniform across like every
Yeah.
competition now, and I think there is a skill of like dealing with a heavier implement in conjunction with all the other stuff that we do, whether that be like gymnastics or a machine or something like that. Oh, to circle back to my answer for stuff I don't want anymore, and this is purely personal, the worm. If the worm could kick
Oh
rocks,
man.
I am tired of being assaulted by the thing. Just make me do something synchronized, please. Stop hitting me with that
From a
sandbag.
spectator standpoint, it is always quite interesting to watch, some of the fittest people who I'm around all the time, like, go to these things, and there's just be, like, people who I see work out all the time, like, Jordan Clark, very impassive workout face. You put something in front of him, and he tends to just
Where
kind of buzzsaw it.
wears the
Yeah.
work out incredibly well. You
Yeah.
never know when
I
he's
have seen
struggling.
him with a worm on his shoulder looking like, like, literally like a dragon came out of a pit to
Yeah.
attack him, just, like, terrified,
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and it's just wild to watch to be like, "Man, like, that looks like it." Like, usually, I don't say it, it's like, "That looks like it sucks,"
Yeah.
right? Like, "That looks awful."
And then, like, team bringing back another thing I was gonna say about stuff I like to add in. It's not a movement thing, but just like a structure thing. Just on the team side, just like a little bit more like teamwork focus on
Mhm.
workouts. I think, and again, this might just be the level that I coach at. A lot of them tend to just be like, you do something, then I do something, and it just kind of ping pong. Like you do a full round of this, then I do a full round of this.
Right.
Which again, it's a logistics thing. Like I get it, but there are ways to get around it, and like I think that again is selective for a specific group of athlete that would do well in that. Like all my athletes work out in the same gym. I would like to see them be able to use their communication well in a workout,
That's cool.
and like I think I think it makes it way more interesting. Like if you pay all this money to go to team competition and you get to do 5 halves of a workout,
Right.
like
Yeah, if you're, a partner workout, if it is not written the right way, is the exact same thing as doing a workout on your own with one-to-one rest to work.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Like, it's just the same thing, like, you could just do any workout, do Murph and just work for a minute, rest for a minute.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, that's a partner work like, that's a team competition or right, is it something where we're having to strategize and figure out
Yeah. Like
who's gonna do what and how we're gonna break things up and how we're gonna call split, like, call, like, transitions or things like that. I think that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But otherwise, like moving where everything's in there. Trust me, I
Right.
know. There's
Okay.
not a
It's
lot where
all in
I'm
there.
like, man,
Yeah.
we didn't do X. It
Right.
was just like more again, like themes and general stuff I run into
Okay,
about
so
consulting
we
about
went kinda, like, out to competition, and now I wanna, like, bring us back into the gym a little
into the
bit.
gymnasium.
Yeah. Our main pipeline kinda here is often somebody who's been doing our group classes for a while, enjoying themselves, and really, like, digging, the more complex stuff, the kind of, like, refinement of some of those things, and obviously, like, some of the competitive aspect of what we do. Um, those people usually they like want to put in more work. They want to
Mhm.
make sure that that work is focused on what is going to yield results in lifts and metcons, in other like measurable data points. So, and you've worked with all those people, you've seen the people who have, jumped in and jumped in successfully. Like, I'm sure there are some people who are like more suited or who are like the perfect candidate for switching to the compete program. So, like, what does a good candidate for someone to switch to compete programming look like? And then what does somebody who is going to be continuously successful in your program look like?
Yeah, I definitely like the big one being like they want to compete. There are people who like not with my program, but go out there and it's really just want to work out more, which is totally valid. Like that's fine. I totally get that. You have to be willing to compete, put a date on your calendar, and be willing to be like vulnerable in that space. That's a big one. The next one would be like making sure you actually have the capacity to do this, not from like a like fitness standpoint, but from a lifestyle
Right.
standpoint. Like I don't do really well with people who are not willing to prioritize training. And mainly because just like there's a weird like I don't know why we're doing this then. But that's again, that's more personal thing. You have to mentally check in with yourself and be like, I want to dedicate more time and more of my lifestyle around that. Like that always like and I can pick those people out pretty quickly. They're the ones in class that are like they are on top of doing making sure every score is logged, leaving themselves notes. They're asking questions. They're constantly striving for the next step in what they're doing in a like very intentional way. Like that's usually the first like giveaway for me. Um and then like outside of that, you don't need to be at a certain level of fitness. Like I run a like foundations level compete, and that's like someone who like wants to dip their toe in and like see if it works for them. Or maybe they have like a local competition coming up where they're still doing like jumping pull-ups and things like that. It competition like my program is not necessarily like you need to be like this crazy athlete. You
It's
need to
not
be
called it's not called like Lumos Elite,
no,
right?
not at all. Like you need to what you do need to be elite at is like the level of intention you bring to the table and the level of like self accountability. Those are my athletes who do really well. Those are the ones that I've had them for years. They know like I'm not asking them what their like best back squat is and they have no idea. They
Yeah.
know year after year. They can tell me what it's been for the past 5 years. And that's always like the one that gets there because like nine times like I said, like coming in and working out is super easy. Like studying the game and like developing that athlete IQ and all that, that's the harder part.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's pretty well said, and I think it like, it does draw us to a point that I think is worth illustrating, right? Is that this idea of like the and I mean, maybe it draws us back to the first question of like, what does the field look like today, right? Early on, CrossFit competition meant like one thing, right? Usually there was like a division. If you went to either a local one, certainly like a bigger one with a
Right.
qualifier. And now I think they have done a really good job of like opening divisions and basically being like the thing that you need to do a competition is the desire to do it.
Desire to do
Right?
it.
The like all of the skills and things like that, like we'll find the right lane for you to do that in. And certainly in your program, like, and we can take that and move that along. But
Yeah.
what is hard for you to move along is certainly like, yeah, right. Do I want to be here? And then, kind of the like, do I have, what we talk about like in some of our intake forms, like ready, willing, able, right? Like,
Yeah.
do I have that capacity, right? Is my life in a place and am I in a place that, I can like honestly commit to doing a good job in this? Or is, sometimes it's not, and sometimes it is, but often it is not any fault of somebody own that like they're
No.
just like, I just had my first kid and I want to, compete next month. And it's like, yeah, maybe now is not the right
Maybe
time.
now it's not,
Right.
or if you are like determined to do this, should have an understanding of what the product is,
Right.
like what your result is going to be.
Yeah, right. Or right. Yeah.
Like as long as we're good on like I'm fine with that. Like
Mhm.
totally fine. Yeah, I think like you just said something that sent me on a roller coaster and now I'm thinking
Or
about
like open division, like
yeah, like people like every division is so good now,
Yeah.
like so
Right.
unfathomably good. Like if you like, it's always like pro, RX, intermediate, rookie, or scaled, or whatever they call it. Like intermediate are probably the fittest people at your gym
Right.
at this point,
Right.
like by a long shot. Like terrifyingly fit people
Right.
that might just lack like one or two skills.
Right.
Now it's like it's so much capacity game that like now it's like the only thing keeping certain people out of RX is probably like maybe just like they're not strong enough yet, like
Right.
load wise, but they are still so good at
Yeah.
everything
Right.
else. Like it is really hard to qualify for things nowadays. So like if you're not willing to like bring everything, like everything that you have the capacity to do to it, like you're not qualifying for something.
It's the interesting thing about a sport that like marries both like capacity and skill,
Yeah.
right? Like if it was one or the other, you'd have a very different field. You'd
Mhm.
have people with just like engine for days, right? And
Yeah.
those, I mean, those sports exist,
Yeah.
right? And then you'd have, if it was just skill, it's like, oh, you're talking about like Olympic gymnastics competition or
Right.
something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
or Olympic weightlifting, right?
Yeah.
Like in some ways, right? And like this marriage of those two, you may have somebody who's slightly further along in one or the other,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like, gone are the days where, like, if you're just stronger than everyone else, you could probably squeak out a win. Like,
right.
that doesn't work
Yeah,
anymore. Like, you have to be good at everything at your division's level, or else you're not making it. Like,
no,
we've learned this, like, time and time again. Like, and the amount of people, like, if anyone thinks CrossFit's dying, God, is it not? Like, I mean, if for one of the competitions we did this year, there was 300 people trying to qualify in just one division in like the men's intermediate division.
right,
That's it. That's 300 in just that. Like, and then you go to these competitions, there's like 2,000 people there,
right.
and they're all so good, and it's really cool to see on my end. I was like, you go to these things like, all right, like, and for me, it's like my people who can keep up. And that's the fun part.
Very cool. I think that's like it's a for a podcast for another time of like it's an interesting thing about I think sometimes the perception of like, CrossFit competition or CrossFit in general, like fading.
Yeah.
And I think what it really is now is that there's just like a busier, like social marketplace of ideas.
Yeah, of
I mean,
course.
like there's just better training generally available and more of it than, when CrossFit jumped on the scene and was like far and away the best training option, right?
Yeah.
There's competition, but also just like, people know more. I mean, like I've been to Globo gyms recently and I'm like, man, people seem like they know what they're doing. And I used to never say that,
Yeah.
right? I
Oh,
used to go there and be like,
yeah.
who are these mutants? Like, what the
Uh,
hell are they doing?
Sir,
And
why
now
are
I'm
you
like,
doing that?
sweet, like person over there is doing like deadlifts with tempo and this guy did this and whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, people kind of know how to train. And I mean, like, I think the internet and the rise of some of like fitness, influencer culture or whatever has fueled that. And maybe that's like pulled
Yeah.
away from, some of like the being like, wow, like CrossFit is, everybody wants to do it, blah, 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 just because there's like more voices, which is probably overall good.
Yeah,
Right.
I think like on that note, there's just more to do, like
Hmm.
like in a competitive way now.
Right.
Like it used to be like there was marathons and then there was CrossFit
Right.
competitions. Now it's like marathons, Spartan races, high rocks, Deca comp, whatever, like whatever. There's so many more opportunities for people to be athletes
Hmm.
again. And it's like that's a good thing.
Hmm.
Like it's cool to see like some of my folks not like I had a bunch of people from my program go to High Rocks and they had a blast. Like it does, there's just the more is never a bad thing in my world. It's just like, people on the internet like to talk and, it's what it is. But every time I go to one of these competitions, there's more and more people. Like it's never like they're losing folks. It's just getting bigger and bigger. They're opening more divisions, they're doing more competitions. Like it's there's never been an easier time to compete in CrossFit.
Very cool.
So
All right. We didn't shorten things.
perfect.
I've been the last couple minutes I've been looking at the clock and I'm like, huh, right about where we were last time. Maybe the problem isn't necessarily the format. Maybe the problem is the talent.
The problem's me.
Yeah, the problem is chatty people.
Yeah.
But I hope if you're watching this, if you made it 40 minutes in, you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. If you are interested in doing Compete with John, whether you're a member here or whether you're like some just stranger, I don't know, lurking on the internet who's like, I want to do that. What would be first step? Just shoot you an
Shoot you a
email?
message.
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram at Coach Fazio, Fazio. You can reach out to me there. I work with people remotely. You don't have to go to this gym specifically. Like that's the avenue I've gone down before. You can set up a free intro at lumosfitnesscollective.com. I'm full of them, everybody.
That's
To get more information on that. I think that's it. I think that's where I'm reachable.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's him.
absolutely.
Next week, we'll be back to a just me format. I think we're going to be talking about one of my favorite fitness people, my buddy Dan John.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're going to talk about that, deep dive that. Thank you for watching.
I could give you a heads up. That's not going to be a short one either.
I'm going to try my best, but it might not be. All right.
Later.